Her name hasn't left my mouth in 3 months, but it still stings the inside of my jaw like it's carved into bone. Jessica. The way it used to glide off my tongue now tastes like battery acid. I haven't said it out loud since the courthouse, since the judge slammed the gavel, and she stood there, arms crossed, like she had just won a custody battle over a dog she didn't even want to feed. 3 months since I watched her walk out of that courtroom in silence. Not a single glance back. No tears. No guilt. Just her red coat catching the wind, like she was in a perfume ad. That moment, I thought the worst was behind me. That was my mistake. Our divorce was loud. Not in a public spectacle kind of way. It was silent arguments that never ended. Dinners that curdled with tension. Her voice slicing through every conversation like she was trying to win something. I didn't know what we were competing for. Maybe freedom. Maybe control. All I know is that she hated losing, and I hated what I was becoming, just trying to keep up. But this story didn't really begin at the courthouse. It began 3 nights ago at 2:11 a.m., when I was lying in bed, scrolling through my inbox. I'd been trying to unsubscribe from random newsletters. I wanted to clean my digital life the way people shave their heads after a breakup. Then I saw it. One new email, sandwiched between spam. No name, just an address and a subject line that didn't feel like spam at all. The truth. I didn't hesitate. I clicked it, half out of boredom, half because something about that title pulled at my gut in a way I couldn't explain. I was not ready for what I read. It wasn't a single message. It was a thread, screenshots, transcripts, phone recordings. Some of it, I couldn't even look at the first time. The email was sent by someone anonymous, but they claimed to be the ex-wife of a man named Daniel. The name meant nothing to me at first, then it clicked. Daniel was the personal trainer Jessica had hired during our last year together. The one she insisted on paying in cash. The one she swore she only saw twice a week, mid-mornings, while I was at work. I kept reading. The email laid it all out perfectly, chronologically, from the first session to their last hotel visit. Names, dates, photos, a copy of a text where she told him. He still doesn't know. He's pathetic. That word hit me like it had claws. And that's when I realized Jessica hadn't just lied. She had orchestrated an entirely different life under my nose. She was sleeping with him while I was paying for her gym membership. I bought her protein shakes while she was sitting on his lap in the back of a Nissan with tinted windows. It didn't stop there. According to the woman who sent the email, her name was Madison. By the way, Jessica and Daniel didn't break up after the divorce. In fact, they were planning to move in together. Only Daniel didn't tell Jessica he was still technically married. His wife found out recently, and instead of confronting him directly, Madison decided to reach out to me. She wanted revenge, not just on him, but on Jessica too. I closed the email and just sat there in the dark, my room suddenly feeling too quiet, like the walls were waiting for me to react. But there was no rage, not yet. It was something colder, like I'd been submerged in freezing water and my brain hadn't caught up to the temperature. I reread the screenshots 5 times. There was no denying it. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a conversation I could explain away or argue through. It was deliberate, graphic betrayal. And the thing that made it worse? Jessica had lied to me even after the divorce. 3 weeks ago, she sent me a text at midnight, just a casual. "Hope you're doing okay." I ignored it. Now I knew why she sent it. She was probably making sure I hadn't heard anything yet. Testing the waters. But if she was expecting silence from me, she had miscalculated. Everything changed then. I wasn't going to stay quiet. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. She got to walk away looking like the victim, like she was escaping an unhappy marriage. No. I wasn't going to let her get away with both the affair and the narrative. I called her the next morning, not a text, not an email, a call. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was way too casual, like she was waiting for a delivery. "Hey, what's up?" I didn't even say hello. I just asked one question. "Who's Daniel?" The silence on the other end was better than any scream. She tried to play dumb, said she didn't know who I was talking about. I stayed quiet and let her twist in it. Then I read her one of the messages out loud, word for word. She went quiet again. Then finally, in the flattest voice imaginable, she said, "Wow, you really had to dig, huh?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "That's not true." Not even shock. Just that. I remember gripping my phone so tight I heard the case creak. Then she laughed, actually laughed. Said I must be really bored if I was talking to bitter strangers online. Said Madison was obsessed with her, and I was pathetic for falling for it. But the fear in her voice cracked through on the last sentence. She was scrambling, covering, mocking her favorite defense. I didn't shout. I didn't insult her. I just said, "You're going to regret underestimating me." Then I hung up. That was 2 days ago. And what I did next is something I didn't even know I had in me. The next morning, I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Reconstruction. Not revenge. Not closure. Reconstruction. I wasn't planning to get even. I wasn't planning to scream into the void. I was going to build something from what she left me, in a pile of ashes and receipts. The first thing I did was reply to Madison. I told her I believed her, that everything she sent lined up with what I already suspected but couldn't prove, that Jessica had spent the last 2 years not just cheating, but weaponizing my own self-doubt to do it. Madison didn't waste time. She responded with more. Turns out, Jessica didn't just sleep with Daniel. She invested in him. Literally. She loaned him money, our money, while claiming she was paying off her student debt. She co-signed a lease for his new gym space. She made up a story about a business class she was taking downtown every Thursday. That's when she was meeting him. And while I was cooking for her, fixing our gutters, saving to maybe go to Europe that fall, she was playing assistant to some sweaty fraud with a six-pack and a man bun. By noon, I had a whole file of proof, names, screenshots, financial statements. I felt like a detective who just solved his own murder. But then came the moment I didn't expect. Madison asked me if I wanted to meet. Just coffee, nothing weird, she said. She was heading downtown later that day, and if I wanted, she could hand me the originals of everything she had. I didn't trust easily anymore. I was suspicious of everyone, including her. But something in the way she wrote, direct, no embellishment, felt like the one honest thing I'd seen in months. We met at a cafe near a train station. She looked tired but not fragile, like someone who'd been through fire and didn't care if she smelled like smoke anymore. We didn't waste time on small talk. She handed me a flash drive, slid it across the table like a contract. I asked her why she'd even bother to do all this. Her answer hit hard. Because your ex laughed when she found out I was pregnant. I blinked. She looked me straight in the face. She told Daniel I was probably lying just to keep him around. Said I was too boring to actually raise a kid. He told her that. I found the messages. And when I confronted her, because yes, I did, she smiled. Smiled like. She said, "Well, maybe now you'll have something to do with your life." The rage I'd been storing in the corners of my mind broke through. Something. It wasn't about jealousy anymore. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about watching a human being rot from the inside and being told it was my fault for not lighting candles. I thanked her, and then I did something I hadn't planned. I told Madison that Jessica had texted me 3 weeks ago. Maybe she sensed all this was coming. Maybe she always tried to get ahead of things so she could spin the story first. Madison leaned back in her chair. She's already rewriting it. Trust me. And that's when the plan started to form. I didn't want to just expose Jessica. I wanted to deconstruct her carefully, like disassembling a bomb, so everyone could see what she really was under the glossy Instagram captions and iced coffee selfies. I started with her job. Jessica works in real estate, flashy, high-end, and commission-heavy. She built her entire public image on being trustworthy, connected, polished. I knew that reputation mattered more to her than anything else, maybe even more than me, maybe even more than Daniel. So, I made a phone call. Not to her boss. That would have been too direct, too easy to dismiss as a bitter ex. No, I called one of her clients, someone I remembered, a couple she sold a house to last summer. We'd had dinner together once. They liked me, thought I was solid. I told them I had information they'd want to know before recommending her to anyone else. I sent them the screenshots. I made it clear I wasn't trying to smear her. I just thought people deserved to know who they were trusting with hundreds of thousands of dollars. They replied, shocked and disgusted, and promised not to use her again. It was a small thing, but I saw it ripple. 2 nights later, I got the message. Jessica again. Nice to know you're still obsessed with me. Thought divorce meant you'd finally stop embarrassing yourself. No context, no explanation, just the kind of venom you spit when your walls start cracking and you think sarcasm will plug the holes. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something better. I requested a meeting with her, neutral ground, a quiet coffee shop where we used to go before things went bad. I made it sound like I wanted to talk about closure. I knew she'd show. She couldn't resist the idea of watching me squirm. But I wasn't coming to talk. I was coming to end something she didn't know was still alive. She showed up 7 minutes late. Typical Jessica, never arrived anywhere on time unless it was her idea. She walked in like nothing in the world could touch her. Coat draped over her shoulders. Designer bag swinging like a pendulum. That glossy, curated version of her face she always saved for public spaces. She saw me and didn't even flinch. No guilt. No tension. Just slid into the seat across from me and gave me a look like she was bored already. So, she said, pulling off her gloves one finger at a time. What's this about? You having some kind of delayed emotional reaction? I didn't speak. Yet I watched her closely, the way her eyes darted around, scanning for who might see us. Image always came first. Even now. No one's here for you, I said calmly. You can drop the mask. She smirked. God, you really are dramatic. Is this some closure talk? I already closed the book, Mike. Maybe you should, too. I pulled a small black folder from my bag and laid it gently on the table. Her face twitched just slightly enough. What's that? She asked. Everything, I said. The gym sessions, the fake invoices, the money transfers to Daniel's account, the texts, the hotel bookings, the voice recordings. She didn't reach for it. Didn't even look at it. Just stared at me with this tilted expression, like I'd dropped dog poop on the table instead of a file that could dismantle her career. You seriously came here to show me screenshots from some bitter woman with too much time on her hands? I came here, I said, to give you a chance. One chance to step down from your little pedestal before I kick the whole thing over. Jessica leaned back, crossed her arms. And what exactly do you want? An apology? A refund? Do you think this makes you look smart? You spent how many hours digging through my trash to build this little drama for what? That was when I smiled, just once, the first smile in months that actually felt real. No, I said. I didn't come here to ask for anything. I came to offer something. One offer. You stop contacting me. You stop spinning your little story to friends, clients, or family. You take down that post about me being emotionally manipulative, and you don't so much as mention my name ever again. She laughed. Laughed right in my face, loud enough that a barista turned. You think you can threaten me with receipts from my personal life? Nobody cares. You think real estate clients care about cheating? They care about numbers. I'm good at my job, Mike. You always hated that. I didn't flinch. No, I said. What they care about is ethics. And you forged documents to help Daniel fake income on his loan pre-approval. You lied about your tax forms. There's an email you sent from your work account pretending to be his assistant. That's not just infidelity, Jess. That's fraud. She froze. The confidence cracked, just a flicker, but it was there. You're bluffing, she whispered. I have it printed, I replied. And on the flash drive. And backed up twice now. She looked around. That perfect posture began to shrink. She reached for her bag, pulling out her phone. Probably to call someone. Maybe her lawyer. Maybe Daniel. I haven't sent it to anyone yet, I added. But I will. You push this any further, I will. And I won't warn you next time. Jessica stood up, just like that. Didn't say a word. Grabbed her coat, turned on her heel, and walked out. But not before hissing one last thing under her breath. You think this is over? You always think you're the one with the last move. But you forget, Mike, I know what really breaks you. I didn't follow her. I didn't call after her. I sat there for a full 5 minutes after she left, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of me. The air in that cafe suddenly felt electric, like something massive had just been set in motion. She was wrong. I didn't need to win. I just needed her to feel it this time. No exit without consequence. But I should have known. Jessica never leaves a stage without setting it on fire behind her, and I was about to find out just how far she'd go to stay in control. The email came 3 days later. Not from her, from HR. My job, a place I'd been for 6 years, without so much as a warning. The subject line was clean, sterile. Review of conduct, internal inquiry. At first I thought it was spam, some kind of phishing scam. Then I opened it, and my stomach coiled in on itself. Apparently someone had submitted an anonymous complaint accusing me of retaliatory behavior, emotional harassment, and targeted defamation of a private individual with professional overlap. It read like a legal document, but twisted through a lens I couldn't recognize. It described me like I was stalking her, like I was obsessed, unhinged, using manufactured evidence to destroy a woman's career out of personal spite. Jessica. She had weaponized the one thing I gave her, silence. She spun the entire confrontation in that cafe into a threatening ambush. Said I'd been tracking her movements, that I was distributing doctored materials. She had shown up to the meeting with intent to intimidate and control. I didn't need confirmation. I knew it was her because she didn't want revenge, she wanted control of the narrative. She knew exactly where to hit, not in the chest, but in the spine, where it paralyzes. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, lights off, laptop open, rereading every line of her complaint. She didn't just want to protect herself, she wanted to break my credibility. If she couldn't kill my side of the story, she'd make it radioactive. I forwarded everything to Madison. She read it, called me. She's scared, she said. This is what she does. Jessica doesn't fight. She buries. And Madison would know. She offered to go public. Said she could put her name on the screenshots, on the documents, that her own legal counsel was already involved with Daniel and his tax mess. She wasn't bluffing. She'd had enough. But I told her to wait, because Jessica made a mistake, a small one. In the complaint, she mentioned the cafe. Said I lured her under false pretenses and created a hostile situation in a neutral business environment. That would have worked, except the cafe had security cameras inside and out. I went back the next morning, spoke to the manager, told him I needed footage from the date and time we met. I wasn't dramatic about it. I just said it was a legal matter. Surprisingly, he didn't hesitate. Said I had 3 days before the system automatically deleted it. I left with a thumb drive, and on it, her walking in alone, sitting down calmly, laughing, smirking, leaning in, never flinching. No raised voices, no threats. Just a woman perfectly in control of herself, until she saw the folder. Proof. It wasn't just about defending myself now. It was about exposing the pattern. Jessica didn't lash out because she was scared. She did it because she'd done this before, because it worked, because no one had ever pushed back with actual evidence. So I built a new folder. Labeled it Pattern. I included her messages from when we were married, the way she gaslit every question I ever asked her. Voice messages blaming me for making her cheat by not being interesting anymore. I included the time-stamped recordings from Madison, the financial records, the video from the cafe, And one more thing, a message I recorded myself, looking straight into the camera, calm, clean, just truth. I laid out the timeline, the facts, the lies, and I asked one question at the end. How many people does she get to bury before someone says her name out loud? I didn't send it out, not yet, because I still wanted to see if she would blink. I waited 2 days. No word. HR paused their investigation, pending external context. They said I knew what that meant. They were watching, hesitating. I bought time. Then finally, Jessica reached out, not by text, not by phone. She showed up at my door, hair tied back, no makeup, hoodie and jeans. Nothing curated. Not a trace of the woman from that cafe. She didn't look furious. She looked flat. "You need to stop," she said the second I opened the door. I didn't move. "You made your point," she added. "You want me to admit it? Fine. I cheated. I manipulated. You win. What do you want? Blood?" I didn't say a word. "I'm not the only one who's messed up, Mike," she continued. "Don't pretend you were some perfect husband. You were boring, safe, predictable. You didn't see me anymore. Daniel made me feel like I mattered again." I blinked slowly. "That's your defense?" I asked. "That I didn't entertain you enough to keep your lies from happening?" She stepped back, looked me dead in the eye. "My defense," she said, "is that I don't care what you think anymore. But you're not dragging me down with your little video games. You want a war? I'll make sure you're the only one standing at the end, and everyone thinks you lit the match." Then she turned, walked back to her car, and drove off. I stood there for a long time, not angry, not shaking, just cold. Because I realized something in that moment. Jessica wasn't done with me. She was just getting more careful. And I wasn't done either. Because the match had already been lit. 2 days passed after she showed up at my door. Not a word from her. Not a message. Not a threat. Not even a passive-aggressive story on her socials. Silence. Which, from Jessica, wasn't peace. It was strategy. I didn't buy it for a second. But the universe has a taste for irony. Because while I was bracing for her next move, I got blindsided from a different direction. My sister Natalie called me out of nowhere. We don't talk much. She's been living her own life, a few states away, raising kids, keeping her head down. I hadn't told her about Jessica, not really. Just that we'd split, and it was messy. She never liked Jess. Said she smiled with her teeth, not her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "No greeting?" I replied. "Tell you what? That Jessica's been messaging Mom." My heart stalled. "What do you mean, messaging her?" "She told Mom you were having episodes. That you might be spiraling again. She said she's worried about you, that maybe someone should check in." I sat down hard. My ears rang. That's when I realized what Jessica was doing. She wasn't just going to HR. She was building a bigger story, quietly spreading it where it would hurt the most. To people who mattered, people who might hesitate just long enough to wonder if it could be true. She was laying the groundwork for the collapse of my credibility, one whisper at a time. Natalie wasn't buying it, but I could tell from her voice that even she wasn't completely sure. Jessica was smart like that. She never lied outright. She bent the truth until it was just warped enough to weaponize. I thanked Nat, told her not to worry, promised to send her proof. Then I sat in my kitchen, staring at the folder on my laptop. It felt heavier now. Not just a file. Not just evidence. It was a lifeline, the only thing keeping her narrative from swallowing mine. I decided it was time to pull a thread she forgot I had. His name was Carter. He was Jessica's colleague, one of the agents in her real estate office. We met twice during holiday mixers. The second time, I caught him staring at her for just a second too long. Jessica brushed it off, said he was harmless. Now I wondered. So I reached out. Carter responded to my message within an hour, said he was surprised to hear from me. I cut straight to it. Told him I needed to talk in person. We met in a bar, quiet, off the grid, no crowd. He was cautious, polite, but when I brought up Jessica, his posture changed, guarded, like he touched a burner before and still felt the sting. "I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything," he started, but then paused. "Yeah," he continued. "Things were always strange with her." "How strange?" I asked. He glanced around, then leaned in. "She told people you were controlling, that you used to track her phone. Said you'd show up at her open houses just to spy on her. She said you were jealous of her success." I felt the words bounce off me like ice. "She was laying that groundwork while we were still married." I asked, "Did she say that?" He nodded slowly. "I didn't believe all of it, but she knows how to make people doubt. She's charming when she needs to be, cold when she doesn't." Then he paused, looked at me with something between guilt and curiosity. "She ever tell you about San Diego?" I froze. "What? The conference, real estate thing, last year?" "She said she was going with some girlfriends from another firm, but I saw her there with Daniel." "I thought you knew." I didn't respond. My blood had gone quiet. That was the week she said her phone got stolen. The week she didn't call once. Said she needed space. My hand curled into a fist on the table. Not from rage, but from the realization that I'd stopped trusting myself long before the lies started to unravel. She made me doubt every instinct, every gut feeling, until the silence became a habit. I left that bar with two new things. Confirmation that her lies weren't just personal, they were strategic, long-term. She had been rewriting the story in chapters well before the ending came. A witness. Maybe not one willing to go public, but someone who had seen the gap between what she said and what she did. That night, I compiled everything again. Cleaned the files, renamed the recordings, created a digital vault, a secure link that couldn't be tampered with. Then I sent it to 3 places, one to my lawyer, one to my HR case manager, and one unmarked, anonymous, to her firm's regional office. Not revenge. Insurance. Then I waited. Not for her to reply, but for the sound of the cracks starting to spread. The next morning they did. Doubt. I knew something had shifted when I woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind. The before the storm kind. No texts, no calls, no new emails from HR, not even spam. The world had paused. Then, at 11:17 a.m., the pause ended. I got a message from a blocked number. No name, no photo, just a number I'd never seen. The message was short, and I'll never forget the words. "You really think they won't look at you too?" That was it. 7 words. Jessica was on the defensive now, but she wasn't retreating. She was cornered, and she was choosing chaos over surrender. I could feel it in that text. She'd lost control of the story, so now she was trying to burn the script. But it was too late. Because just 20 minutes later Carter called me. His voice was shaking, lower than before. "They're investigating her," he said. "Internal audit. The regional office didn't tell anyone who submitted the documents, but the rumors are flying. She stormed out of the office earlier today. Told the receptionist she was going to lawyer up." My chest didn't fill with triumph. It filled with something heavier. This wasn't satisfaction. This was the slow detachment from a person I once built my future around. The recognition that I hadn't just lost her. I'd lost who I was with her. The man I was when I believed her. That man couldn't exist anymore. But I had no time to mourn, because the next hit wasn't aimed at her, it came at me. I got a call from HR at 3:05 p.m. "We're closing the internal inquiry. We've reviewed the new information, and the original complaint appears to be misleading. However, there's now been a second anonymous submission. This one involving past mental health claims and medication history." I froze. I stiffened. My spine went cold. That wasn't just below the belt. That was surgical. Jessica had accessed my medical history somehow or guessed well enough. Years ago, after a hard stretch in my 20s, I'd done therapy, been on light medication, nothing major, nothing scandalous. But in her hands, it became a paintbrush. Now, she was trying to make me look unstable again. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I asked one question. Did the submission come with evidence? Silence. Then a careful answer. No. Just a statement. But the timing is noted. HR was being diplomatic, but I could tell this was now a war of attrition. A grind. She couldn't beat me with facts, so she was trying to outlast me with noise. I hung up, set the phone down, and stared at the wall for a long time. That's when it hit me. Jessica wasn't fighting me anymore. She was fighting the idea of me. A version of me that didn't need her, didn't believe her, didn't bend to her reality. That's what she couldn't stand. That someone walked away and stayed gone. I picked up my phone and called Madison. She answered on the first ring. I didn't ask how she was. I just said, I think it's time we both go public. There was silence on the other end, but not hesitation. Just thought. Then she said, I was hoping you'd say that. Over the next 2 days we worked. We built a timeline, documents, statements, redacted names where needed. We weren't making a tabloid. We were making a record, one that couldn't be twisted, mocked, or deleted. Madison posted hers first, on a private blog she'd been using for months to journal quietly. But this time, it wasn't quiet. She wrote everything. Not just about Daniel, about Jessica, about the patterns, the tactics, the subtle manipulations, the things people rarely see but always feel. The post went viral in their little industry circle, quietly, like poison spreading in water. A few shares, a few comments, then DMs from other women, from people who knew pieces. Suddenly, the puzzle was building itself. I didn't need to post mine. Madison's truth opened the door wide enough. But still, I did one post. One simple link to a drive. No subject. Just this. When truth is too clean, people assume it's fake. So here's the messy version. The version I lived. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't even use her name, but people knew. The fallout was immediate. Carter texted me that Jessica was put on unpaid leave, pending review. Madison got a message from Daniel's wife, not angry, not bitter, grateful. Said she finally felt like she wasn't crazy. But here's where it turned again. Jessica didn't post a response. She didn't call. She didn't threaten. She vanished. From Instagram. From Facebook. From work. No digital trail. Nothing. Gone. And for a moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe she finally folded. Then late at night, my phone lit up again. Not a message, an email from her. No subject, just one sentence inside. You always forget the part where I already know how this ends. I stared at the email for a long time. You always forget the part where I already know how this ends. No attachments. No threats. No anger in the text. Just that one cold, surgical sentence. The kind of message that isn't sent to scare you, but to remind you who you're dealing with. That was always her trick. Not violence, not drama. Precision. The next morning, I found out what she meant. It started with a notification, a request for a call from a number tied to a leasing agency. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. The woman on the other end was polite, corporate, and clearly uncomfortable. Hi, Mr. Carlson. I'm calling to confirm a recent change to your co-signer status on the loft application filed for Unit 19C. I paused. My mouth went dry. I didn't file any application, I said. I hesitated. Well, your name and signature are here as financial guarantor. The system shows your credit was run last week. There's already been a deposit paid on your behalf. What name was on the lease? Jessica M. Carlson. The signature wasn't mine, but the information, my social, my employment details, everything was accurate. She forged it. And not just to mess with me. This was about leverage. I asked the woman to hold, pulled open my credit report. There it was, a new inquiry, a leasing agency I'd never heard of. Jessica had submitted the application under the assumption we were reconciling, citing pending documentation for proof of my consent. It wasn't an apartment. It was a trap. One last piece of evidence she'd planted weeks ago, back when she first realized the walls were closing in. It hadn't detonated yet because she timed it. She was building the story. He came back, he said he forgave me, we were going to try again, and then he flipped. He broke down. He started harassing me. I was watching the weapon load in real time. I ended the call with the leasing agency and immediately contacted my lawyer. He was already drafting a cease and desist for the HR mess. Now we were adding fraud, identity theft, and defamation. But the real hit came later that night. Natalie called again. Her voice was tight. "Mike, she came to Mom's house." I stopped breathing. "She brought a printed lease. Said you two were moving back in together. That you didn't want to scare the family by announcing it yet. Mom let her in. Yeah, she sat there for 20 minutes. Said she was dropping off your half of some boxes. Even gave Mom a folder with wedding photos, old ones, stuff she claimed you wanted back." My hands were shaking. "She's laying the groundwork," I said quietly, "to make me look unstable. Mike, she left something else." "What?" "A flash drive." That's when my chest went still. Jessica didn't just want to ruin me professionally. She wanted to turn the people closest to me against me before I could reach them. "Don't open it," I told Nat. "Not yet. I'll come tomorrow." When I arrived the next morning, the drive was still sealed in a plastic case. I plugged it into my laptop on Mom's kitchen counter. Nat stood behind me. There were 3 video files. One was from my therapy intake years ago, illegally recorded. The second was a heavily edited clip of an old argument Jessica and I had in our living room. It had been trimmed to look like I was shouting randomly. The parts where she baited and pushed had been cut. The framing was perfect, enough ambiguity to raise doubt, but not enough for me to disprove it cleanly. The third was a video of her sitting calmly on a couch, speaking directly to the camera. She said she feared for her safety. That I changed. That she was documenting her side in case anything happened to her. I closed the laptop slowly. Jessica had made herself the victim of a man she knew would never hit her, never threaten her, never raise a hand. Because she knew the accusation would sting more than the truth. She left this with Mom. Natalie said quietly, "Mike, I think she's trying to trigger something. I think she wants you to snap." I nodded. That's when I realized what this really was. She didn't need to win. She just needed me to break in public. To give her just enough to bury the rest. Because once people see you as unstable, everything else is just noise. But I wasn't breaking. I was documenting everything now. Every message, every contact, every stunt. And I made one more copy of that flash drive, sealed it in an envelope, and mailed it to my lawyer with one line, in case she files something first. Then I did the one thing she didn't expect. I showed up at her office, not storming in, not yelling. I walked straight to the receptionist and calmly asked to speak with her supervisor. 10 minutes later, in a glass panel conference room, I slid a USB drive across the table. It contained a full statement, a breakdown of forged leasing activity, a timeline of false claims, a recording of our cafe conversation, a summary of her attempts to fabricate reconciliation. The supervisor didn't say much, but his face said enough. "She's already on leave," he said. "This confirms a few concerns we've been tracking. She's escalating." I told him, "And she's dragging people with her." He nodded once. "We'll take it from here." And I left. Jessica always told me she hated being underestimated. That day, she finally understood what that actually felt like. The silence lasted 4 days. No emails, no messages, no sudden third-hand reports. Just a strange vacuumed quiet. But it wasn't peace. It was the moment when the wave pulls back before it crushes the shore. Then, like clockwork, the tide turned. I didn't find out from a source. I didn't have to. Jessica broke her own silence. And for the first time, she didn't speak to me. She posted. Not on her public socials, those were still dark, but on a private forum meant for local real estate professionals. The kind of insular place where word spreads like wildfire, but nothing is said too loudly. It was a long post, cloaked in self-righteous calm, titled "When You're Targeted: My Experience with Digital Harassment, Manipulation, and Rebuilding After Abuse." It was, in every possible way, a master class in manipulation. She never used my name, but described a former partner who suffered from untreated rage issues, who had hacked her personal files, who was obsessed with discrediting her professionally after she left the marriage. She claimed she was being stalked online, that fabricated evidence had been distributed, and that she feared for her safety. She signed it off with, "To any woman trying to escape a silent abuser, know this: your voice matters, even when they try to bury it with theirs." The comment section lit up with sympathy, likes, hugs, private messages from other agents saying how brave she was, how proud they were of her for speaking out. I sat on my couch and read every word of it. The worst part? It was brilliant. She wrapped her lies in the language of victimhood so well, you couldn't separate them anymore. She built a second version of reality, one where I was the monster in her healing arc. And to the untrained eye, it looked legitimate. But what she didn't count on was the receipts. Because one of the women who commented, "Proud of you, Red Art," was someone I recognized. Danielle. A client. Jessica's client. Someone I had once picked up from the airport because Jessica had double booked and couldn't be bothered to show. Danielle had trusted Jessica once, but she'd also seen how she talked about clients behind their backs. How she mocked their outfits, laughed at their offers, rolled her eyes at their budgets. I remembered those conversations. I remembered the way Danielle looked at her, not quite admiration, not quite comfort, a little too alert. So I reached out carefully. "Just a message. I know you don't owe me anything, but you commented on Jessica's post. I thought you should see this." I sent her the same secure link I'd sent the regional manager. No words. Just facts. She didn't reply for a day. Then she did. "I didn't know. I'm sorry. I had no idea it went that far." An hour later, her comment was deleted. The next day, 2 more disappeared. By the end of the week, Jessica's post was still up, but the glow around it had dimmed. Whispers. The tide had begun, not loudly, not on the page, but elsewhere. DMs, quiet questions, small doubts. Then came the actual blow. Madison texted me a screenshot from a real estate Reddit thread. Not official, not even verified, but someone anonymously posted. "Anyone ever dealt with Jessica M? Had weird experiences, expenses with her. Lots of gossip, but some clients are speaking up now. Curious if anyone else had red flags." The thread exploded. It wasn't an attack. It was a slow bleed, small stories, little details. Someone mentioned she changed listing prices last minute without warning. Another claimed they were pressured into an unfair deal. A third said she made backhanded comments about their divorce and tried to connect as survivors. It was happening. The image she built, that flawless, empowered, professional mask, was cracking. And not because I'd shouted into the void, but because people started remembering the way she made them feel. And feelings stick longer than facts. Jessica must have seen it too, because 2 nights later, at 2:34 a.m., I got another email. This one didn't come from her personal account. It was from her lawyer. It was a cease and desist, a carefully worded document claiming I was waging a coordinated smear campaign, demanding I remove all content referring to her, delete the shared documents, and issue a written retraction to her employer and all parties who received my materials. It ended with a threat of civil litigation. I didn't panic. I forwarded it directly to my attorney, who'd already prepared a 62-page response, complete with digital proof of each claim, confirmation of the false lease, the edited therapy clips, the forged co-signature, and the video from the cafe. We sent the counter notice the next morning with a final statement. My client will not be intimidated into silence. We have no intention to settle. We welcome a legal hearing, because a trial will bring everything public, and Jessica doesn't do well in places she can't control. The silence after that was long, heavier than the others, but it wasn't defeat. It was something else: containment, damage control. She'd pushed too far, too fast. She tried to burn my life down, and now her own house was catching fire. And then, like every chess player out of moves, she tried one last hand. Not logic. Not legal. Personal. I got a call from my dad. We hadn't spoken in months, not because of Jessica. We just drifted after everything fell apart. But he called, and he said carefully, "She came to see me, Mike." I was parked outside my building when my dad said it, engine running, door half open. I closed it slowly, like that could stop the words from echoing. "She came to see me, Mike. I was parked outside my building when yesterday, she said late afternoon, she asked if I had time to talk. Said it was important." I leaned back in my seat and stared at the dashboard. I didn't say anything. I just listened, and every second made my jaw lock tighter. "She said you were going through something," Dad continued. "That she was worried but couldn't reach you. Said she thought you might be having trouble accepting what's real. She didn't say much else, just left a letter." He hesitated. "She said it was for you, but I should read it too." I could feel my pulse pounding behind my eyes. "Did you?" I asked. "Yeah," he admitted. "I did. And for a minute, Mike, it worked. She made it sound like she was scared of you. Like you'd built this whole fantasy about her being some kind of monster. Like you were spiraling." Dad sighed, a long exhausted sound. Now, I don't know what to believe. There it was. Her sharpest weapon. Not fear. Not threats. Doubt. The quiet, creeping erosion of trust, one conversation at a time. She hadn't gone to my dad to reconcile. She went to confuse him, to plant just enough poison that when the fallout came, he'd wonder if maybe it was mutual destruction. That maybe I had imagined some of it. And if my own father questioned it, how long before others did too? I asked him to meet me the next day. Neutral spot. Public. I brought the file. Not all of it, just enough. Screenshots, timelines, the leasing application, the forged co-signature, the real footage from the cafe. He didn't say much at first. He just sat with it, read every word, watched every clip. No reactions. No comments. But his hand trembled when he passed it back. "She really did all this. She did worse. These are just the things I caught." He looked older than I remembered, like the last year had aged him under my radar. "I'm sorry," he hesitated. "But you know how she is. She's convincing. She knows how to talk like she's already survived something." I nodded. I knew better than anyone. But it didn't end there. Because after that conversation, after I reestablished truth with my own father, the final twist arrived. Not through Jessica. Through Daniel. He messaged me. No introduction. No context. Just a single line. "She's turning on me now. We need to talk." My first instinct was to delete it. This man helped wreck my marriage, lied to my face, took my money without knowing it. But something about the timing told me to wait. I gave him 1 hour at a bench near the train station. No indoor setups, no privacy, nothing she could twist. Daniel looked like a man who hadn't slept in days, eyes red, hair a mess. But not dramatic, not showy. Just worn. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said right away. "I was an idiot, a coward. She made it so easy to believe I was saving her from something. That you were." He stopped. "Anyway, she turned it on me this week." Defined turned. "She told my clients I was stealing from her. Said I was emotionally unstable, violent, that I was stalking her. She sent the same fake documents she accused you of making about me this time." There it was. The pattern. Her fallback move when control slipped. Frame the man, isolate him, discredit everything before he can speak. I didn't say anything. Just watched him squirm. He kept going. "She told me once if it ever came down to it, she'd make sure the court believed her no matter what. Said I could have the truth. She'd take the jury." I almost laughed. Of course she said that. It was her code. Daniel handed me a flash drive. She recorded us every time, conversations, fights, even moments when she pretended to be scared, knowing she'd use the audio later. It's all here. I was going to delete it, he said. But if she's going to drag me down, I'm not going alone. I took it. I didn't thank him. As I walked away, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him. Not even at her. I was done. This wasn't about revenge now. It wasn't even about clearing my name. It was about legacy. Making sure that when the dust settled, the Real story was on record. Unaltered. Ugly. Unpolished. But real. Jessica could spin 1,000 tales, but facts don't blink. And now I had hers, in her own voice, her own words, her own downfall. I didn't watch the recordings right away. The flash drive Daniel gave me sat untouched for 2 days. Not because I was afraid of what was on it, but because I already knew. I didn't need to hear Jessica stage her victimhood, rehearse fear, bait him into shouting. I'd lived that show. I'd just never seen the full script. But eventually I pressed play. There were 14 files. She recorded. She's herself crying on cue, telling Daniel to say it louder, begging him not to leave. Then, whispering calmly when she thought the audio wouldn't catch. In one recording, she even practiced different ways to say the same sentence, like she was rehearsing lines for a drama that hadn't been greenlit yet. What broke me wasn't the manipulation. It was how calm she was, calculated, like this wasn't personal for her. It was preparation. This wasn't pain, it was strategy. And I realized something I hadn't dared say out loud until that moment. She never loved me. She loved the reflection I gave her, the version of herself that looked noble, loyal, better than. And the second I stopped mirroring that fantasy, I became disposable. Daniel, in a weird way, was just a mirror too. Same with Madison, same with the clients, the followers, the colleagues. Jessica didn't betray me because she wanted more. She betrayed me because I stopped being useful to her story. That realization didn't hurt. It clarified. And when clarity comes, action follows. I compiled everything, from the first email to the last recording. I sat with my lawyer for 5 hours. We wrote out the full report, not a smear piece, not a hit job, just a record. Then I sent it to HR, to her regional board, to the leasing agency, to the people she messaged in my family, to the court, preemptively. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. A full scorched earth legal wall between her and anything I ever touched again. 2 days later, she called unknown number. Just her voice, tight, controlled, but shaking under the surface. You win, she said. I didn't say anything. You got what you wanted. They suspended me. They're opening a formal review. You happy now? I could hear her pacing, the same rhythm she used when she used to pick fights while brushing her hair. You're going to destroy both of us, Mike. That made me speak. No, I said. I'm just pulling down the stage. You already lit the fire. She paused. Then the last line came, quiet, just above a whisper. You really think anyone's going to remember your side? Then she hung up. And that's when I knew it was truly over. Because that's what she feared most, being forgettable, being seen truly for what she was, and having no story left to hide behind. I didn't hear from her again, not through calls, not through lawyers, not through third-hand whispers. A few weeks later, Madison told me Jessica moved offices, changed firms, rebranded herself under a new company with a new title and a new face. But in the age of digital trails, the ghosts follow, quietly, lingering in DMs, in searches, in unspoken warnings. As for Daniel, he went quiet. Left the gym. His name faded from the thread. Madison moved on. Finally, she sent me a photo of her baby a month ago, said he sleeps through the night now, said she finally does too. Me? I live in a smaller place now. No shared closets, no boxes labeled. Her stuff. I go for walks. I cook. I read again. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's honest. And sometimes that's enough. I don't check her socials. I don't wonder where she is. I don't replay what I should have said or done, because I said it all. I did it all. And now I'm done. If you're reading this because something in your life feels twisted and you can't figure out why, start writing it down. Record it. Lay it out. Patterns emerge in silence. That's how I survived, not by yelling, not by begging, but by documenting everything. Because lies rot in daylight, and truth, even when no one claps for it, stands.